At my cousin's wedding, Dad mocked me as the family failure. Uncle joked I'd beg for cash. Seriously, have you ever felt like you were born with a label taped to your forehead? For me, it was family failure. But what happens when you take that label, turn it into rocket fuel, build something extraordinary in secret, and then, at the most public, vulnerable moment, your own family tries to steal the truth right out of your hands? This isn't just a story about comeuppance. It's about what happens when years of quiet ambition finally collide with a lifetime of arrogance, all in one room filled with white flowers and borrowed authority. I didn't set out to embarrass anyone. I just got so incredibly tired of being erased by the same people who swore they knew me best. So, consider this the beginning of how it all finally unraveled, not the end. And look, I'm going to take this slow, because everything about that night started long before the first toast, long before the first eye roll. Before anyone in my family realized I wasn't playing the same old script they'd forced me into since I could count the knots in our dining room table. My childhood wasn't dramatic in a flashy way. It was just relentlessly measured. My dad, Robert, is the kind of man who thinks calendars define character and job titles are morality. My uncle, his older brother Thomas, is somehow worse. He'd actually text screenshots of his bank app like they were baby photos. You know those families that comment on grades like they're stock tickers at dinner? Yeah, that was us. Up 3 points in math. Solid, Dad would say, carving the roast like a trader cutting losses. If a grade dipped, the air in the room would just change. Growing up, I learned to read the faces in our house like a sailor reads the sky. There was this specific look my dad would get when he thought I was underperforming. He wouldn't yell, just tilt his head and set his jaw like a contractor estimating the cost of fixing a cracked foundation. My mom, Miriam, would pass the salad and say, "We love you," but in a tone that clearly meant, "We're worried you're going to embarrass us." So, I learned to shrink my victories and swallow my mistakes. And trust me, that becomes really important later. People like to talk about one big turning point where your life changes, right? But for me, it was a series of quiet, almost invisible ones. Things that don't make headlines, things that look like detours unless you're the person actually walking them. I graduated with a business degree and this vague idea that I could build something of my own. My first job out of college was at a logistics firm, entry level. It paid enough to pretend you're moving forward while your feet were basically stuck in wet cement. I lasted 11 months before my position was eliminated. The email said restructuring, but my father heard he didn't work hard enough. He took me to breakfast the next morning, staring at the menu like it owed him money. So, what's the plan, Miles? Hoping someone hands you a promotion. Man, it wasn't always like that when I was a kid. There were good days. But adulthood had sharpened him, like the world just kept confirming his theory that softness is a kind of sin. I told him I'd figure it out. He just smiled in that way that isn't a smile at all. I believe in realism, he said, not fantasies. After that, I went to a startup. It folded. Of course it did, Uncle Thomas said with a delighted grimace at a barbecue, where everyone else was eating ribs and trying not to comment. Startups are just expensive ways to fail loudly. After that, I took an operations role at a company that looked promising. They got acquired, and I was one of the redundancies. Look, getting cut is an honest thing. It's not pleasant, but it's not a moral judgment. No matter how much my family tried to make it one. I kept hearing some version of the same sentence. Maybe you're just not built for this. Some people's families knit blankets, mine and then, the part that shocked everyone, watch full story.